don't get discouraged if you feel like still in those locations he looks nervous, because like I already talked about, he's had so many experiences of being uncomfortable that we have to counteract it with the more positive ones, which is going to take some time.
I love when I hold the tree over their head and they like sit for a second and they're like, why isn't this working? And then they sit again and go, why isn't this working? He's just like, I have no idea what to do to get this treat from you right now.
I'll go in there, I'll do this,
I'll do everything. We'll just do a little update with Gus. How about that? Are you ready? All right, guys, we're here with Mr. Gus. Gus just got here on Saturday. He's just a young, rambunctious little pupperoni, if you will. Gus is here for being just wild and out of control and doesn't listen to his owner and likes to drag him around all over the place on the walk and just be a little bit of a lunatic. So we're teaching him some manners and we're working through the training. What we're gonna do today is just kind of show you guys where we're at. What are we, Saturday, Sunday, Monday to Tuesday, 4 days into his training. 4 days in, he's rocking it so far. We've been working some leash walking, we've been working some bed stays, some basic leash fundamentals, conditioning in the e-collar, obviously with some of our commands and stuff, and he's doing really, really great so far. So what we'll do is we'll start off with some walking, show you where he's at, 4 days into training. This dog came in out of control, and I want to show this and say all that to kind of show you guys, like, this stuff doesn't take that long, right? Once you know what you're doing, once you have good routines established, once you kind of put them through kind of a trusted program with stuff, these dogs really, really, really pick up on things very, very quickly. So we'll get started with stuff and we'll kind of show you guys where he's at. Let's do it. Gus, come. Bradley, so what we're gonna do today with him is instead of using the continuous pressure, we are gonna switch to using our positive punishment or a single tap correction to enforce the position. So I'm gonna give him more slack on the leash to allow him to make more of those mistakes. Gotcha. And then when he gets out of position, I'll just be marking with no and correcting. And I wanna start to see that he kind of fixes himself with less need of leash help, obviously. So you can see as we're walking, he's doing a really great job. He's staying with me. So far, I haven't needed to give a single correction for anything, but it's very scanny, right? Kind of looking all over the place, checking out the cars, checking everything out. I don't have a massive issue with that by any means. He's allowed to look at what he wants to look at, and frankly, this type of an environment, busy street, a lot of traffic, a lot of things going on, you can tell, obviously, he's not used to it. So by exposing him in a controlled way to this kind of stuff, meaning, no, come. So that was the first correction I needed to give. So by exposing him in a controlled way to this kind of stuff, meaning he's free to take it all in, and I'm not gonna punish him for looking or anything like that, but there still are some rules, obviously, that he has to follow. He can't go like 0 to 60, and if he does get spooked by something, start taking off or pulling or anything like that, what's gonna happen is we're gonna get 50% of his brain focused on whatever task it is we're ultimately asking him to do. In this case, walking politely with me, so that he could take things in a more controlled fashion. So he could learn all those noises happening around him and people walking by and all that stuff that is startling the shit out of him isn't actually scary, right? So they go by, it happens, and nothing bad ultimately happens, which helps kind of condition him to those things. Wow, it's just a fall day out right now. Man, look at the leaves on the ground. Bridget. Some serious staring you're getting out of that dog over there. Look at it. Oh my God. Gonna do some training drills?
Training drills?
Training drills?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We're gonna work some pass-bys and stuff. He could use a little bit of work with that. He could use a little work with that. Make a good little video, I feel like. Work some downstays and stuff first, and we'll do it one. I don't wanna have a line of dogs doing it right now. And we'll kind of swap off where like you do some or we'll do some while you're there. Okay. You guys do some while I'm there and kind of ping pong that way. Yeah. So what I want to do is we're going to just work a bunch of pass-bys, just like kind of in a line back and forth. We'll go from like where those benches are right there to like this trash can. We'll just kind of go back and forth. And just same deal, they'll kind of meet in the middle, right? Pass by. And I want to do repetitions of it until, one, they're not engaging, obviously. 2, they're not interested, and 3, they're like totally focused on handler, right? So Seamus, why don't you?
That's downing like in the middle of the fork right there.
You can do it wherever, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, we'll do it first, Bridget. Bridget, why don't you hang out by that trash can? I'll go by the park benches, and when we're passing, obviously not that they have to be on the left side, but have the dogs inside, obviously. That way they're close to each other while they're passing and totally ignoring each other. So I'll go there first, and then we'll both start walking at the same time and just kind of go back and forth a few times. He's so interested in everything. Good. 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 Seamus is just showing off now. Given that, obviously with the bed and all the others, like the 5 to 8 range seem good, we're gonna start at a 5 here. And this is the same process, where first prerequisite, make sure that I can physically get him to do it. I wanna be able to create distance and know I could get him next to me. Really straightforward, right? Now, obviously, since we did the leash walking, you know, this is gonna be generally fairly easy because we already kinda did the teaching stages of it, right? So we'll see what we get. So I'm gonna start nice and low here. And now that I know that I could physically get him to come to me, and the criteria with the come command is just be in my bubble, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start layering in verbal command and the negative reinforcement with the e-collar. So what I'm gonna do is create distance. I'll say, Gus, come. Good. If he gets to me and does it on his own, I could just mark and reward. No need for any e-collar pressure. Okay. And then release him from it. Gus, come. Good. If he doesn't do it, I would engage the continuous pressure. I would then help him to me. So engaging, helping, releasing, right? Okay. Gus, come. Good. Okay.
How much understanding does he have of like what you're doing?
Very little so far. I mean, we just started, you know, like he's still figuring it out, which is why sometimes like you'll notice the first like 7 or 8 repetitions, like he was fine with. And part of that is because I had the treats, right? So like the come command is one of those ones where like organically the dogs kind of get how to do it to follow you around for treats, but are they actually understanding the expectation of it? Not so much, right? Where as you do more and more repetitions and the act of just like following you around gets more boring, that in a lot of cases is where you'll get a more concrete understanding, because you get them out of this state of mind of just like guessing and anticipating and like, you know, just being excited to follow you around. You get them more so of like, I'd probably rather do something else, or I'm getting bored of this and I want to go lay down or sniff over here. And then you can get concrete repetitions in those moments, right? Okay. Come. You know, where these last couple repetitions, like that right there, that was a pretty deliberate and concrete one where he was like, okay, I need to move. And he actually put himself next to me because we just finished a bunch of leash walking stuff, obviously, but come command, it's the same thing, obviously. So he's becoming more conscious of the expectation, and especially given the fact that he's in a state of mind where he knows, like, I just kind of have to do this right now. Okay.
Learning one or the other with like knowing.
You could teach any of your commands in any order as long as you follow those prerequisites of, I have to be able to physically get the dog to do it, right? We use leash pressure for that. Some will use like a food lure or whatever it may be, right? You pair it to a cue and attach some sort of motivation behind it, whether we're using negative reinforcement or we're using positive reinforcement, whichever one. We want to increase the likelihood of the dog performing the behavior and have some sort of motivation behind it. Whether the motivation to escape or to achieve, whether it's reward or whether it's using an aversive, obviously. And then you generalize and proof, right? So obviously after we get past this stage of things, we would start proofing it still on a short leash, right? Then we would do a long line, then we would do no line, et cetera, et cetera. But like I said, you could do a bed stay, you could do a come command, you could do your leash walking, which again is the come command. It's the act of being next to you in your bubble. The only difference is on the walk, we're moving while he's in the bubble, right? So it could be any command you want. Come.
Good.
Do
Okay.
you also condition,
Come.
or do you do this phase with distance as well, or no?
I'll elaborate on that. In the positive reinforcement space or the competitive dog world and stuff, they call it, you don't name it until you love it, right? Meaning that I've taught the physical position, so now I'm just attaching a word to it, right? Attaching a word to it's the easy part. It's not about the word. It's about have you shaped what it is that you want them to do. Come. Right, and now we're just getting repetitions in of, I know I could get them to do it, right? So I'm just pairing word, do this behavior, word, do this behavior, word, do this behavior, so that that word starts predicting doing this behavior. Okay, come. And then if it's incorrect, I know that I could use e-collar and leash right there and see how seamless that was, right? I got him very quickly into position. I was able to adjust his behavior because I have the foundations of that command already established to cause him to have a stronger association with that word later. Okay. Come. Right, like see how much more deliberate that was. He almost made the mistake and he was like, no, that's not right. And he turned around and came back to me. Okay. Come. Right there, he realized he was too far away from me and he fixed himself. Good job, buddy. Okay. Come. So as you move along, you realize it becomes less of an accident that he's winding up next to you, and it becomes more of a conscious thing that he's ultimately doing. Okay.
Would you do this same phase of where you're at right now, outside with a long line or something like that? No. Okay.
You could, right? It's not wrong to have him 20 feet away from me, engage e-collar, bring him to me and turn it off, obviously. But like, you know, really the come command is a position, right? It's no different than sit or down or bed or whatever it may be, where it's the position of being next to me. It's not the act of moving to me from afar, right? So that's why I spend so much time on the come command on this short leash.
Gotcha.
Because once he has an understanding of where he needs to end, adding distance is easy. You know what I mean? So this is the easiest possible way in order for him to kind of learn and understand that position.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay. Come. Okay. Come. Good. Okay. Come. Okay.
He gets really excited with dogs, so I don't know if this will work.
Yeah.
As well as like the e-collar.
The e-collar will work better. The same thing that we worked on at that first session is if he gets out of his down, so if his shoulders come off the ground and he starts to stand up, you can say no, give that tap, and then we'll just tell him to down again, and we'll just enforce that. And I actually might grab a dog and just walk through just for the sake of it so that you can practice a little bit as well and see how he does.
Use the prong too.
Ideally, you shouldn't need to use the prong. Yeah, you should be able, because he knows the command. So I'm confident that if you just give a correction to enforce it, then he should be able to go right back down into it. We may have to play around with the level that it's at to make sure that we're motivating at a high enough correction to get him to respond, especially because it is so distracting in here and there's a lot going on. So let me grab a dog and we'll practice that a little bit more. And go ahead and give him, you can still hold your leash, but give it a little bit more looseness. Perfect. So that way he doesn't think he's being physically held there.
Should I be tapping it now because he's already...
Nope. You only want to tap if you're saying your no to mark a mistake that he's making or a wrong choice. So right now, all we care about is his physical position. So as long as those elbows stay on the ground and that down, he's fine. He can look at her all he wants. He can even whine, vocalize a little bit, totally fine as long as that position stays still. If his elbows come up, you're gonna say no, then you're gonna tap your button, and then you'll tell him to down again.
No.
Not quite yet. I know, it's hard. It's and that's something that it's important to remember that there's no like rush, right? You can be very calm about it. If he stands up, nothing terrible is gonna happen. You know what I mean? I'm confident that this isn't a dangerous situation. So if he stands up, take your time. Just say your no, do your tap, and then put him right back into a down. Sunday. Very good. I'll walk her out and we'll, there you go. And repeat your command. Perfect. That was really good. And that's good you stopped yourself from using the prong. I saw you reach for it initially because he doesn't need it anymore. And it's normal because you've been using it for so long. But the e-collar, because he knows the command, he understands the criteria involved with it, the e-collar is just helping hold him accountable for the times when he's not keeping the command, essentially. So watch his elbows. If he stands up,
No.
and still say you're down,
Down.
good. That process of marking with no, tapping your button, and repeating your command, you're always gonna do that no matter how quickly he fixes it. Yeah, because it feels weird, right? If he already goes into a down, it feels weird to say down again, but you still can because you're just reiterating what he was supposed to be doing and restarting the command at that point. With the correction as well, say you say no and he immediately fixes it, it's again gonna be tempting to not even hit your button because you're like, oh, well, he fixed it. He got into position. But it's not that we want him to listen to no, it's that we want him to have not made that choice in the first place. You know what I mean? So if we say no, we're obligated to hit that button and still repeat our command.
No. Down.
Perfect. That was very good.
No. So that was like a warning no, what was I supposed to say?
No warnings.
Okay.
Because we never want to have to warn because then we're always going to have to warn because they know they're always going to get a freebie. You know what I mean? So it's just we want to make it very black and white. Until he fully commits to making that wrong choice, we're not saying anything. And then once that commitment is there, we say no and we correct. So if you had waited a bit longer, your no would have been accurate because he did come up off his elbows a little bit. You were just a little bit too soon trying to like, again, warn him, which we don't want to do. Sunday. Very nice.
No.
And then repeat your down. Good. And you see how incidentally you're getting a little bit more focus? You see how he just looked at you right there?
Why?
Because you're holding him accountable. He's learning that when he decides to engage with his environment, there's accountability from that, and it's coming from you. So he's gonna have to shift his focus from everything else going on back to you to avoid the corrections. So you're becoming a lot more relevant to him right now.
No. No. Down.
Very good. All right, what level are we at right now on the e-collar?
12.
Go ahead and go up to 30, because this is another good example of how to gauge, okay, maybe we should increase our level now, is because he's continuing to make those same choices, right? We're not seeing a decrease in the wrong choices that he's making. You know what I mean? So that means that whatever level we're correcting at, he's kind of like, yeah, I mean, I feel it, but like, whatever. It's still worth it to try to go and see that dog or whatever the distraction is. If we find that we're having to give a lot of corrections for the same things, then generally we're not correcting high enough. So we're gonna increase, so that way we can see a decrease in his willingness to ignore the commands. Monday.
When he goes up and I'm correcting, am I not supposed to not
No leash. No leash.
such a habit?
I know. Well, because that's been your main tool,
Yeah.
you know, which is totally fine that was your reflex. We're just transitioning away.
Okay.
Because ideally you want to be able to do this without the leash,
Right.
you know, and the e-collar is what's going to enable you to do that. Because right now you're so heavily dependent on the prong and the leash at this point.
Yeah. No.
Technically, he hadn't done anything yet. Yeah, he's just checking it out, which, if anything, his demeanor right now, I'd say is pretty encouraging when you said that one of your main goals is how fearful he is generally. You know what I mean? Like, this, yeah, but I mean, David's a complete stranger, right? You've never met him before?
Never met him.
Yeah, so I would say that's pretty cool that he's a little bit willing to like air scent, kind of check it out, stuff like that. And if he's doing it politely by maintaining position, we definitely don't want to correct for that, you know, because we want him to know that like, yeah, you can be curious and check it out as long as you stay controlled and in the position that we want.
You said not to let anybody pet him, so
Yes.
if he does go up to somebody on his own,
Mm-hmm.
can they pet him or should I still say no?
So that's where, in a similar context to this, you want him maintaining the command that you're in. So if him going up to somebody means that he's, again, starting to break away from the walking command that he's in and being like, I want to go say hi to them, you still do want to correct for that. Because even though he's being a little bit more confident and curious, he's the one making the choice in that moment, where he's ignoring a command and he's going to do something else and engage with the environment. So you still want to hold him accountable for that. The reason why when he was in his down and he was just like sniffing and kind of like checking them out that we were okay with that is because he was still obeying your commands at the same time, right? So if you took him to like Lowe's or Home Depot and you put him in a down and you let people walk by and he just kind of learns to like hang out and get comfortable with them being near him, that would be far more beneficial than allowing him to go up to people to say hi. Because think about it this way, the same behavior, and this can happen a lot of times with dogs that are uncomfortable with people, is that they start out uncomfortable with people, so we remove people engaging with them so they can build their confidence back up. And then when they start to show signs of curiosity and wanting to check them out, we drop the structure and the rules that got them to that point in the first place, and you completely regress and crumble the whole foundation that you built. Because again, you're putting them back in that position of control, where they're getting to make the decisions and the choosing. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure that even as his confidence builds and he is a little bit more comfortable around new people, you're still holding him accountable for what you expect of him, command-wise, and we're just allowing him to socialize with people in a very safe, productive, intentional way. So for him, I would say at this point, I prefer indefinitely, but you know, everybody can be a little bit different. Anytime he's on leash, he doesn't get to meet anybody. Because again, the leash is going to make him feel very trapped, and we want to avoid that right now. So right now, if he's on a leash, nobody gets to pet him. If he's off leash, then you can go about socializing him with new people in a very specific way. That's going to make it a lot more successful. Does that all make sense? Cool. You see how he's doing better holding his command now, though, since we switched to 30? So that is an indicator that it was more of a motivation issue. He was like, 12 isn't that bad. I don't really care about 12. I'm going to get up. Yes, yeah. So, and honestly, a 30 for a dog this size is pretty low anyways. But every dog's sensitivity is a little bit different. But that's kind of how you can gauge that a little bit, is if you're having to consistently keep correcting for the same things, then we just probably need to adjust the level a little bit. Again, we'll kind of get to a position where I can sometimes make like a baseline rule of like, if you've given a couple corrections, increase. You know, if you give a couple corrections at that level, increase. And I can give you some gauges for that too, but I'd say for now, 30 is probably pretty good for this situation. Throughout it too.
Say that like Cracker Park or Home Depot.
Absolutely, that would be great.
Okay. And just like that while people and dogs are walking by.
Yeah, that would be an awesome exercise to do with him. Is just some stillness, getting him accustomed to seeing all of that, them passing by, probably even going to talk to him and be like, wow, you're such a good boy, you know, things like that. And you can even in those situations take some really high value treats, things that he really, really likes, cut up hot dogs, pieces of cheese, you know, stuff that he really wouldn't get any other time. And every time he looks at somebody or somebody talks to him or passes, give him food. Tell him good and give him food. Yep, you give him food. Because what that's gonna do is that's what's gonna start to make the emotional response to being around people change. So I'll explain that in a little more detail when we get in here. Fear and like the head tucking and all that kind of stuff that you're seeing when you have him out in public is the emotions that he's feeling, right? He's nervous, he's uncomfortable, whatever in those situations. So when it comes to training, it's very difficult to give direct feedback to the way a dog feels, right? I can't tell them, oh, you shouldn't be scared, right? All I can do is create really good control and helping him choose the best coping mechanisms when he is uncomfortable. So that meaning he's not trying to run away, he's not lunging or barking, you know, and then you start to see, like you're saying, when you take him in places, you're seeing more of that raw emotion, which is just uncomfortable. Head ducked, he's like, oh no, they're coming at me from all angles. What do I do? Yes, and so with that, the best thing that you can do is then we start to do the counter conditioning of it. So that's where you put him in a command, a downstay, whatever, and every time he sees a person or something that would traditionally make him uncomfortable, you're giving him something really, really good. Okay. So now his association, whereas before it was, oh no, they're gonna touch me, I don't want them to touch me. So he sees a person and it triggers the fear and the uncomfortability. What you're gonna do is he sees a person and it triggers, oh my gosh, I'm getting cheese, or I'm getting something really good. So that counter conditioning process is how you're actually gonna change how the dog feels when they see it.
To lay him down then and just keep feeding him the treats as people are walking by as opposed to just walking around?
I would find more value in doing that right now. than just the walking. I don't see anything wrong with doing the walking as well, and even incorporating some food as you're walking. That's fine too. But I would say that for him, because him being able to walk well in those situations isn't really a concern, then I would just go there and just do the counter conditioning of it. Just put him in a down. Every time he sees a person, again, they talk to him, look at him, whatever, tell him good, and give him the food.
Okay.
So he starts to associate seeing those things that would traditionally make him nervous with, I see it and then I get cheese, I see it, I get a hot dog, and he starts to actually have a little bit more of a positive response to it.
So even if when people are walking by and he has his ears back, like even if he's in a down, or like we're passing people at Lowe's and he has his ears back,
Yep.
as we're passing people, do I still give him the treat?
Yes,
Or are we too scared?
because he physically did everything you wanted him to do.
Okay.
He said, I'm nervous, but I'm listening and I'm gonna do it, right? And so honestly, that's the exact time you would wanna give him food, because you want him to start switching from there's a person, oh my gosh, I'm nervous, to there's a person, whoa, geez. You know what I mean? So that way it starts to change the association with it. Obviously, you don't wanna reward a dog who is nervous and displaying inappropriate behaviors. You know, so like if he's nervous and then he's lunging, or he's nervous and he's barking, or he's nervous and X, Y, and Z, no, you wouldn't want to reward.
Okay.
But if he's just nervous, but he's behaving himself, rewards all day. That's totally fine. All right, I'm gonna have you do some repetitions of the place with him, just to continue getting more comfortable with the correction process. Still keep it at 30 for right now. And then I have my dog over there, and once you get a little bit more fluid with it, I'll bring another dog over and we'll practice that again.
Slide, please. Please.
So on that one, you know how you said the command twice? I think if you would have just said it that first time and then just waited and not said it again, he probably still would have done it.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yes. Yeah, because he paused for a second and then he went back over there before you had even said it again. So don't worry too much about like the speed of his responses, especially in a context like this where there's like a bunch of people. You know, this is the main thing that kind of makes him a little bit uncomfortable. So he's gonna be a little bit distracted, and I don't really care too much about like him being super sharp, quick on his response. I mean, look at him, he's never probably gonna be that way anyways, but I would just give him that command and then let it breathe for a little bit. And then if he actively shows you that he's choosing to do something other than listen, then you're gonna jump in with your no correction and repeating of the command, but you're not gonna repeat it again.
So sometimes, so on the things that we were working on at home, I think he's just not used to the e-collar yet, and he's getting used to it.
Yeah.
He knows down and he knows place. He knows
Yeah.
it very well. But when I'm practicing, if I tell him down, like right here, I want you down right here,
Yeah.
he goes to his place over there.
Okay.
And then and vice versa, if I tell
Sure.
him place, he'll just lay down right here. But
Okay.
his place is over there.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's like just repetition and he'll understand it eventually with the e-collar.
Yeah, I would say that there's a couple ways you can go about fixing that, and probably the easiest and what I'd recommend is just keeping a leash on him for right now, so that if you tell him down and he says, I'm gonna go over here to my bed, the leash is gonna stop him, so that you can just put him in position where he needs to be. And then if you're giving him the place command, at this point, even though he knows it pretty well, to help him, go stand directly by it and say place. Rather than standing like away from it and having him walk to it on his own. Just to make it a little bit more simplified, since we're seeing a little bit of mix and matching from him, before you say place, go stand next to it. Sometimes, I mean, if you think that it's only happening with the e-collar on, it maybe could be that he's feeling rushed and he's just trying to do a command so he doesn't get corrected. You know what I mean? Kind of like there when I was saying give him some time to think it through. So that could be affecting that if that's happening at home, where he's like, she said something, I'm just gonna do something and see if that works. So that's where I think giving him some more time to let the commands breathe before you correct can probably help, and just adding in a leash for right now to clear up and fine tune that positioning a little bit better. And so on this repetition, make sure you get pretty close to that bed before you say that command for him.
The release command?
The place. So instead of staying there where you're at and saying place, walk all the way next to it. Where he's at doesn't matter. As long as you're next to it, now you can say the command.
Clyde, place.
And now just wait. Don't use any leash. Just gonna wait and see what he does. Just ignore him. Now you can go ahead and give your correction.
No. Place. No. Place.
Very nice.
3. 3 on tap.
Yep, that's okay. He got there. And you stopped yourself from using the leash, which was good, because I saw you start to, and that was good. Because again, we're working through the motivation issue at this point. Because again, I don't think it's like he's confused. I think it's like if I feel like it kind of thing. Yeah, oh yeah. So I think that removing the help of the leash and just telling him, I'm asking you to do the command, and I'm gonna give you motivating corrections to do it at this point, because I know you know how to do it. Come here, Lou. Nope. Jump. A bit closer. Here. Good. Very good. Very nice. I'm looking up at you. Very good. Very good. All right, I'm gonna have you release him. Just do a little circle around and put him right back up there. Very, very good. And when so those moments too where he thought about it, stops, and then he actually looks up at you, and even now where he's laying down, he's looking up at you. You can verbally reward that, tell him good boy. You can pet him and tell him good boy. If you have food, you can give him that. Because that's really, really nice to see where he thinks about it, stops himself, and then refocuses back on you too. And so the way that we're marking with that no and then giving a correction, you're just gonna mark with good and then give the treat. So that way your timing with it can be really nice. So the moment that he like disengages from the distraction and he starts looking at you, you can mark with good and then take a second to grab your treat and then give him the food.
Can I use yes?
Yeah, that's totally fine. Whatever you prefer. Come here, Lou.
That's just what I use when
That's totally fine. Whatever marker. Very good. And this is simulating what you would do with the humans stuff that we talked about as well. But in that situation, a lot of times, you notice how it's taken us probably 20 minutes or 10, 15 minutes of the dog being out here for him to start looking at you. Initially, he was just very focused on the dog. It's okay to reward before he actually starts turning his attention.
Okay.
So like I said, what we talked about over there of if he's doing this and a person walks by and he's still looking, you can still mark with good and reward or yes and reward, and that's totally fine. So whether he's choosing to look at you or not, as long as he's complying, it's okay to reward.
Okay.
And if anything, rewarding before he chooses to look will make him start looking because he'll start anticipating it. Perfect. Oh, good job, good job. Very good. Snoop. Good job. Boy. He said, I earned this. Give me the treat. Good job. Wow. You see how it starts to turn into him not even looking at the other dog or the distraction in general. Because he's like, the more I look at her, the more I get stuff. You're becoming more exciting than everything else that's going on in the room, which is ideally what you want. And then that, coupled with then starting to allow a lot of people to engage with him in those environments, we started at a level where he didn't see you as a leadership role, and then he started just getting overwhelmed and bombarded with all those environmental factors, and then he was like, just gone at that point. You know what I mean? And so now we're rebuilding back in that level of control and guidance and leadership that you want to give him, and then using that to start creating that different association. Because for him to feel comfortable and safe, he has to trust you. And so the way that he starts to trust you is by seeing you as somebody that he can count on and somebody that has standards. Nobody respects a person of authority if they don't have standards that they hold you to, right? If you can walk all over your boss, then you don't respect them. So with all these people in here, we'll kind of see what he chooses to do. If he goes up to any of them, they're just going to ignore him, which is the ideal response for him right now with people. Is we want him to feel like he's invisible. So if he goes and tries to engage, them not like looking at him, trying to touch him, even talking to him, is what's going to make him feel a little bit more comfortable. Because right now the engagement is what makes him nervous. And so if, say, he were to wander up to David and David goes, oh, hey, buddy, and tries to touch him, you're almost punishing his curiosity of going up to say hi, because he's like, dang it, I knew it, you know? And then he's just going to go away. Whereas if he's able to go up and like sniff him out and see what he is and all this kind of stuff and just statue, like don't even engage, he's going to leave that experience being like, cool, that wasn't so bad. You know, I was over in close proximity and nobody touched me and made me uncomfortable. And the next session, we'll take him somewhere public. So if the weather happens to be nice, maybe we'll go down to Edgewater. If it's not, we'll just go to like Home Depot up the road or something. And we can work on that a little bit. But I think this week, if you do some of the counter conditioning we talked about, putting him in a down, using the food and stuff as those people walk by, and just making sure that you advocate for him and don't let anybody engage with him. I think that'll work really well. But yeah, don't get discouraged if you feel like still in those locations he looks nervous, because like I already talked about, like he's had so many experiences of being uncomfortable that we have to counteract it with the more positive ones, which is going to take some time.
Okay. So, but he's acting like this with you, but he got scared of.
Well, he's known me longer.
Oh,
He's known me
so
longer.
he knew you last week.
Yeah, he's known me longer. That's pretty normal.
Socialization, just keep that in mind, right? A lot of times we look at like, wow, we have to get past these fears, so everybody needs to interact with them. Where it's funny, like even with like outdoor dogs and stuff, like Lumos, her dog, didn't really like people initially, right? So like for the first like month of her working here, nobody touched him. You know what I mean? And he just got used to being around us, right? Then little by little, his bubble expanded a little bit, and now we can all interact with him and everything's 100% going to be okay with those individuals because we've had exposure of stuff like this, like what's happening right now, and it goes successfully, and him actually seem more interested in it, I'm not going to allow interactions to take place, right? And that's where like the human confidence side of things like really needs to kick in because, you know, if you're not confident enough to set those boundaries and tell your guest that come over, hey, if it comes up and sniffs you, don't pet him. You're not allowed to pet him, right? Or in public, telling people, hey, you're not allowed to approach him and stuff.
Because look at the difference. So the difference with how he's engaging with me right now, totally different from what he was just doing with him, right? When he was sniffing David, he was just a little bit more cautious. No, yeah, it's nothing wrong, but the comfortability is different.
Even her, he's like wagging his tail.
But she's been ignoring him this whole time. And that's a big key of it too. Because remember we talked about the little subtle signs that he started displaying as a puppy that were kind of ignored, right? Of like him turning his head away or him being like, please nobody pet me, but it persisted. Those are the little things that caused it to escalate then, right, over time. So that's what we're just trying to undo. Is like, no one's gonna invade your space, dude. You can do your thing and we're all just gonna ignore you. And that enables him to build his confidence back up of like, cool, so I can explore, see what they're about, but no one's gonna actively try to ignore his cues of uncomfortability, right? Yeah. So like when he's approaching me and he's like, oh my gosh, hello, like this, that's a pretty like good indicator that he's like very comfortable with me. Whereas like with David, those cues, his tail was dropped a little lower and he was a little more like neck stretched out sniffing, then that's an exact example of where David definitely isn't gonna try to pet him then because he's not fully comfortable. You know what I mean? So yeah, we're just going back to like allowing us to go based on his comfortability as far as the interactions. See, same here. He's a little like, I don't know about this guy, you know?
He's better than he was.
That's
oh yeah.
better than the last two sniffs.
Yeah.
And the mistake people make is they force it then at that point. They think, oh, he's fine now, right? Yeah. Build on the success, right?
And if I would have like insisted on touching him the first time he came by me, he's probably not gonna come back. Or he'll be like, oh.
Yeah, it would have made it worse at that point.
Yeah.
That little tail wag. So again, just letting her kind of work through this. And so this is gonna be something too that, you know, again, we'll kind of talk a little bit more about later, but like having guests over and stuff like that. Like that arousal and stimulation.
She needs that.
Yeah, okay. Are you the one coming over that's riling her up?
Yes.
Yes.
I just
Okay.
walk in.
Yep.
She feels
Yep.
like she has to pet her every time.
Okay.
I just ignore the dog.
Yep. So that'll be something too, you know, we can kind of work on that whether through a command of putting her like on a bed or something, and or, you know, just organically, you know, if you're just coming in through the door, you know, if you're just stopping by to drop off something, whatever it may be, right? There will be new kind of tweaks too coming in and stuff like that with, just ignoring her and letting, again, kind of like this, right? It's something where if she brushes by you and you know, just because she's a big dog, you can put your hand on her head, you know, but just if it's a quick little, hey, how's it going? But you're there to go be with her or something, then that's why I want you there, right? Just kind of ignore it. Yep, walk right by her. And then it'll be kind of on you to work through, like if she, again, she's not a huge jumper, but if she were to kind of jump or especially vocalizing, barking and stuff like that, if she sees her car pull up the driveway and she knows, all right, I know this person, I know that car, right? And she starts vocalizing, I want to nip that in the butt too, because the sooner we can do that, immediately bringing down that stimulation level, right? With our walking, how we structure our walk is with what we call a come command, right? Now I know we're kind of sticking with a couple commands that you've kind of already placed in with like the place and stuff like that for the bed and everything, which we'll keep, but come is one that I've kind of incorporated just because it includes our walking as well as our recalls are all come, right? Okay. The criteria with that being, I'm creating this kind of bubble around me. You know, I give her a little wiggle room because she's a little bit bigger of a dog, but generally she needs to stay stabilized in my kind of position, right? So as we're walking today, or right as we're getting started walking, I'm gonna tell her come. Right now she's not in a command, that's why I'm not worried about her kind of going out and sniffing and everything. But I will give her a come command as we start to begin to walk. and we're walking, I'm not repeating myself at all unless I give a correction beforehand. If I ever feel like I need to repeat myself, it's because she's probably doing something outside of that bubble, outside of that criteria. I want to reinforce a correction before I repeat that command, right?
Okay.
That way she knows that whatever she is doing in that moment, I'm correcting for it and I'm marking for her to let her know, hey, I don't want you to do whatever that is. Whether that's going at the squirrel, whether that's just sniffing something and losing focus on me, whatever it may be, right?
So you correct it and then
then
you give
repeat.
her- okay.
Yep. So corrections are always telling her no first and then giving a tap with the e-collar, right? Because the e-collar is just reinforcing that no marker, right? And the no marker is telling her exactly what she's doing wrong when she's doing it, right? I'll show you kind of as we start walking too. Killian, come. All right, so now that I've told her the command, she is supposed to be in this bubble, right? So you can see she's kind of stabilized herself, right? As I start to walk, I don't need to repeat myself because it's already, yep, it's already been sold. So duration is basically already started with that command.
Where's the easiest for us?
I'm gonna have you guys walk on our right side, yep. Just because worst case scenario, she gets distracted. Now the only time I really correct anything inside the bubble is if she were to cut me off, right? I like to have kind of a no-fly zone, a path that I can always walk and not worry about her zigzagging and tripping me over, you know?
Be on, like we might have seen it once out of the 50 times we walked there, so every time that horse is
She's looking for it, yeah. And that's where, how we kind of fix this criteria. The reason we do it is because it's something where I don't care if she sees that dog over there off leash or sees that squirrel at the tree or knows that a cat's been at that porch before.
it's when she's looking at it every
Exactly.
time.
And that is what we're correcting for,
Yeah,
right?
that's
It's
the
not,
part that I hate.
yes. So I'm staying at the same level, right, this whole time. And what I'm expecting, right, and I'm only giving it, right, again, I'm not looking for like a perfect heel position or anything right now, right? I'm simply just wanting her to stay within that kind of bubble. My general rule of thumb is as long as her butt doesn't get in front of my lead foot, my lead toe, no correction needed, right? And you're absolutely right, yeah. With any of that like focus or whatever, right, I don't care if she sees anything or gets distracted by something. Now, I don't want her totally focus on that thing to the point where as that dog's walking by, she's 180 and doing all that stuff, right? I will give a correction for that, but if it's just a matter of like walking by, you know, I don't care about like constant eye contact and stuff. Because it's such high stimulation, because, you know, she's kind of pushing me a little bit at first. Now after those 2 corrections, 3 corrections, whatever it was, she's much more kind of in tune. I always like to kind of set that standard pretty high and kind of get her in the zone as soon as possible, obviously, yeah. So I'm on high with my e-collar right now. High is being at 100. It's the highest level that we can go on, right? Now, that's why you have more of that vocalizing that you're getting too. But again, it's more, I'd rather it be one and done, and we're good like this, and now I don't have to worry about you constantly ripping my arm out, than this lower level kind of back and forth where it's kind of motivating but not actually fixing the issue. And then you're just overcorrecting because you're correcting 15, 20 times before you even get to this point. And going over some behavioral stuff as well. Well, for example, this squirrel right here, right? Now, if she gets locked in on that, that's fine. But again, I'm set on high, I'm ready, and what I'm looking for is the second she were to even cut in front of me, again, even to walk towards that squirrel, I'm giving a correction, right? I want to get it, the timing is the most important thing where I want to correct for the second you break criteria, right? Because whether that's cutting in front of me, 2 steps in front of me, or fully lunging at that squirrel, either one is breaking criteria. I would rather you do it though before you pull me to the ground than doing that. So that's really kind of the hardest, what takes the most practice, right? Is just doing that timing.
Be like, oh, she'll move her head down like 1/4 of an inch. That's when you do it. I'm like, I can't catch this.
Yes, no.
I've done it for a year. I still haven't seen it.
And that's what I mean, right? It's our structure with things are trying to make it as clear as possible for the dog and for us when they make that mistake, right? And that's why I like to say, like, my rule of thumb is like when her butt gets in front of my lead foot, because what you'll start seeing is if she starts creeping up too much, she'll kind of check herself and she'll be like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm getting too soon.
Walking a couple steps and looking back ever since that second.
Yep. And that's what I want, because she's like, okay, here I'm fine. But when I get up here, that's when I'm starting to get that correction. So I need to kind of like fix myself back because I know that threshold is somewhere up here. Same with cutting in front of me. The clearer I can be with her on where those lines are, where those thresholds are, the better I can be with giving those corrections on my time, you know? But it is, yeah, it definitely is like what takes the most practice for sure.
That's for a walk. Like if we would go hiking, can she be off the leash and just...
Right now, I probably would keep her on leash or at least on the long line. The first week of her being home, the most important thing is success, right? Mm-hmm. It is success for you to have success and for her to have success. So that generally means lower stimulation stuff, lower practice, right? That doesn't mean you can't go on a hike or something,
No, I mean,
but she's probably gonna be on leash at least for the first hike or two,
Okay.
you know? Just until you can have that success and you've been like, okay, I've seen her see that squirrel or that rabbit or that cat or something. Oh yeah, look at it.
It hasn't ran. If it run, that's the best.
Uh-huh. You've been able to practice it. You've been able to kind of see how she reacts and practice that timing. And then it's like, okay, so when you do go off leash, you're like, all right, I got this, girl. I know how to do it, when to do it, what level to do it at, kind of thing. Another big question is, okay, so what about bathroom breaks, right? With bathroom breaks, I always want to be releasing her to go to the bathroom. I don't want it to be something where she's zigzagging me again, like, and going pee here and going pee here and sniffing that thing and, okay. Perfect, cool. And so yeah, so even in that spot though, make sure if you are walking her in that situation, you tell her free, release her, and then let her go do her business, and then repeat the come command once you start walking again. Yep, yep. Because that free now too, and I don't know what kind of the standard was with your release for this, but our release means you're held to no standard, no criteria, so you can do whatever you want, right? So that being said too, be aware also when you're kind of giving that command as well. Coming out of the car, I will always tell her to come. A lot of people, they want to like release them out of the car or something. I want her to come right to me because, again, especially if you're off leash or something, you go free and the second you open that door, she sees that squirrel that 20 feet behind you, right? You don't see it and you go free. Exactly. So it's something that I want every doorway, whether that's the crate, whether that's the car door, whether that's the front door, it is always come. Perfect. And then just go ahead and start walking. Nice. And I'm fine with the amount of slack you have in right now. I want it to be something where there's always that kind of slack in it, that J or U shape in there. So that's perfect. And the most important thing about this is her understanding that you are the one in control and that, you know, that you have her best interest in mind in the situation of whatever. This, for example, right? She sees that dog, maybe she wants to get reactive. You're bubbling out, creating more space where it's just like, no, we're not doing that, you know? And then as we pass the distraction, eyes on her, right? If you are watching her, you'll be able to be much faster on that timing, right? She sees that dog, she ignores it. She looks back at that dog, she ignores it. Perfect. So she's doing these kind of little like checks, you know, she's dipping her head into you and stuff like that, right? Yep, right. So, and that's again where it's like, dictating your path. I want you to be able to walk straight. She's a big, strong dog. If she keeps nudging you, I don't want her to keep kind of, all right, Mom, I want to go this way, right? You are deciding the path and the pace, right? So then she has to kind of fix to that position. That's why I correct for cutting in front. Now, again, a quick little, like if her head's turning in, you can kind of judge it to what you care about, right? If it's something where she's doing it nonstop and she's really shoving you, give a correction for it. But again, it's all about timing. So wait for her to be in front of you to give that correction, to let her know that, yes, that's the mistake. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'll let you know when she does it next time. And when you don't have to give her correction, but I'll let you know when you would give a correction if it is more something that is consistent. So right there, I would give a correction. No. Yep. Perfect. And then repeat that come command. Yep. Perfect. So like that, I wouldn't really care about, right? Because it's something where it's more just kind of like her looking up at you and just happen to kind of like hit her cheek on your thigh. But does that make more sense now? When it's more like full body, like, yeah, when it's like she's committed to trying to come in front of you, I want to nip that in the butt. Now, dogs off leash is a good thing too to kind of talk about as well. If a dog were to ever come up off leash or something, typically what I try to do, and this is kind of obviously depends on the situation, but if a dog were to come up, if that dog were to just start running up to us right now, first thing I do is I try to get in between those two dogs, right? Killian and that other dog. And I'm immediately, I don't care about that dog at all. I'm immediately yelling at the owner to come get their dog, right? Okay. After that point, that the owner's been warned, right? Mm-hmm. And it's something where, in a situation where if you can get her away or at least get her back behind you, that's gonna be your best probability, but of at least having a collision with fighting and stuff. At that point though, it's something where obviously you don't wanna risk your life with just trying to get in the middle of it.
No, because my dog's gonna win.
Oh yeah, and that's why.
Problem though.
Right, well,
uh-huh.
So it's something that, right, it's something that, you know, I don't want to sound like dark or whatever, but if you got to kick that little dog to get it away or something to save its life, then that's what you got to do. Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Which we're doing her place today, but so at home she has, it's a bed kind of like the one that's in her crate, only it has like the soft lining for her head. So
gotcha.
But she likes to slowly put her feet off. And then from there, she kind of snake and slithers the whole body off.
Yeah.
And how she does it so cutely and.
She tries to, tries to slowly ease it off.
Yeah. Or else at least half her paws will need off.
Yeah.
To touch the floor.
So our criteria with our place is 4 paws on the bed, right? If at any point she breaks that criteria, she would get a correction.
Okay.
Now, that being said, because she's a bigger dog, if she is like falling asleep or whatever, she's lounging and there's a paw or 2 off, that's fine. Okay. When she starts to kind of push the limits though, that's when I would give a correction. Okay. And then I would just fix her back up onto the place, right? So getting back all 4 paws back on there, right? With our criteria with the place is that I don't care if she's standing, sitting, or laying down, as long as those 4 paws are on, right? Okay. So if you do fix her back up and then she's sitting or standing up on that bed, totally fine. Just let her have a moment to kind of like lay down and kind of get comfortable again. But yeah, usually it's something I'm fine with readjusting. I'm fine with getting comfortable, and if because of that a paw does come off or something, right, that's fine. Okay. But it's with the intent of getting off, right? Of her slithering off, her army crawl.
She just looks and she gets that cute little puppy face. I'm like, no.
Exactly. And that is, dogs are very opportunistic. That is her just trying to see where exactly is mom actually gonna care.
She's not allowed in the kitchen, so she has a line command not to go in there.
Okay.
She knows, like, if my hands are full of something, I can't get to her space.
Yep.
So she waits until I'm completely covered, and then she's like, I'll just sneak behind you, because she's learned that's the window to the neighbors.
That being the case, yeah, continue to keep that line. Again, you can use it just as a threshold, right? The doorway going in or whatever, going into the kitchen, that is her line not to cross. If she does cross it, now this is where the no marker is so important, right? Because I'm gonna tell her no, even if your hands are full, you can kind of take a minute to put things down, go grab the remote, give a correction, and then have that reinforced, right? Now, ideally what I'd like is for her to hear that no, and then just kind of backpedal out of that doorway, right?
She will, but.
Yeah. And again, that's just the weight of that no marker, right? Why we always, every time I say no, I'm giving a correction, right? Even if it's not immediate, like we've been practicing kind of on the walk, it's something that you have about 30 seconds or so to kind of give a correction after marking that no, as long as it's clear to her of like what the mistake actually is.
Okay.
And because that's something that you've already put in place, that should be something that's pretty clear to her, right?
Okay.
And again, when we go over like our bed, our place and stuff like that too, you'll kind of see the same kind of situations.
She nipped at me, and Ashton thought maybe it's because I kind of got in front of her, one of the other dogs.
She got between her and a cat.
Gotcha.
Was it-
While she
cat?
was trying to go after the cat.
Mm-hmm.
And I stepped in front, and she reached over and,
Got her behind her real quick, but she used her mouth to, kind of like she was hurting her back.
Yeah.
so we didn't know if, what do you do in those situations?
Yeah.
Because she seems to be a dog that wants to protect you, and
In a sense, that is true, right? It's not bad that she wants to protect you, but it's something that when she wants to protect you, yet she is still biting you, that's not ideal, right? So it's something that, again, I would still give a correction for that, right? Because it's something, she's still reacting to that cat, right? And it's something that, now, that being said, moving forward, right, it's something that if she does see that cat, allow her to make the mistake to correct for it first, right? When we do these things of kind of stepping in front or anything, then we tend to kind of avoid the reaction, right? We want to prevent it, so we're kind of proactively getting in front of her and trying to stop her from getting reactive to that cat. Now that we have a firm way of correcting, I want it to be something where if she were to react to that cat, even if, again, if it's barking or, kind of even walking or kind of like prone walking to her, I'm giving a correction for that.
About when we're like hiking and stuff and she can be off leash, like how do you, because I want her to be able to kind of like explore, and sniff around, so I don't really want her beside me.
So that'll come kind of with the practice, right? And that's something that, again, the first couple times that we go on hikes or that you're going on a hike with her or something, I want her on leash the whole time.
Right.
Because if we can build that success and that repetition of this is where you go, anywhere outside of this, we're gonna get corrected for and everything, right? Once you can build that trust and she can build that understanding of the command and the criteria, then we can kind of expand our bubbles a little bit more, right? I can have the trust that if you do kind of wander off and you sniff for something, right, and then I need you to come back and I call you back, you do so, right? It's not this thing of like, come catch me kind of thing, or she kind of sniffs and she gets on a trail of a squirrel or something and then she goes and takes off, right? Before we get to that point, I need to have that trust and that repetition kind of built up. So the first couple times, definitely on leash the whole time, working that structure. Once you feel comfortable in doing that stuff, like I said, you could either do a long line as kind of an intermediate if you would like to kind of allow her a little bit more slack, but she still have something to kind of pull her back if she doesn't, right, come back right away, and then going fully off leash.
Okay.
Or even sometimes I'll just even let the leash drag, with my dog or something if he's just walking around, Again, place is, the criteria is all 4 paws on. Now, I like to practice with my slip lead on the first couple days too, just so we're getting used to it. And again, even in the house, she's not playing this kind of blow you off thing, right? Where you're working her, but she wants to go hang out with her, right? On the couch or something. And this will be kind of, I would assume, kind of like your bread and butter in the house, where it's something where it's like, yep. So, and I could tell that even with kind of when we started training and everything, obviously still going over the commands and refreshing and doing these things, but I haven't even given her a command and she's perfectly on there.
Just say it while we were
Right.
talking, she quickly
Yeah.
remembers it.
So-
Her biggest fault with it is like if a gentleman comes to the door, like the salesman or something, and I go to the door, because she can't see it from her bed,
Gotcha.
so she will quickly jump up from it.
Okay. So go ahead and just go put her on a place.
Kill, place.
Perfect. Cool. And then we're just going to hold her there until they come, right? If she breaks it at any time, tell her no, tap with the e-collar, place again. And I wouldn't worry about like layering commands too. I wouldn't worry about having her down on the bed as well, right? You can do that to add more strict like criteria to it. But for right now, I want to see that if I just need you to go place because she responds so well to you being at a distance, just get her there and then we kind of go from there, right? So I'm going to have you guys just stay right there and then she's going to come up and kind of answer the door for you guys. So go ahead and just kind of open that gate. Yep, so we're just gonna open it and then just let them walk through.
We're here for the
Yep.
party.
And we'll give her a minute. Now again, she's obviously a little stimulated, but want to give her a little bit more. And then we're gonna try this again, but probably have you guys, maybe we'll move to the other side and have you actually like knock on the door so we can get a little bit more. I wanted to see if little distraction like this would work. Perfect. We're just gonna give her a little bit more time. I wanna see her kind of relax a little bit more with this.
She's trying to party with us.
Mm-hmm.
She's looking for command, isn't she?
Yep.
She's like, you guys let me off already.
Now again, not exactly what you would see at home with like answering the door, knocking, and that's why we're gonna simulate a little bit more with like the actual door over there.
But I think part of it is we're all in here too.
Yeah.
And if we were over there and Ashley was just here by herself.
Uh-huh, okay.
And then she
You think
stepped
that?
outside
You
with
guys
us.
step back where she can't see in the little.
Okay.
That way someone knows if she got off.
Yeah. So we'll do that. So we'll kind of transfer over to that side then. So that way we can kind of heighten that simulation. And what we'll do is we'll kind of have, maybe me and Mom will hang over here, right? So we can still kind of see her, but then you guys can walk out. So what David's doing right now, he's just working impulse control, right? He's working he's kind of using that excitement and that stimulation of, oh my God, I really, really want to do it, but I know I have to stay here, right?
And this is like real life stuff that's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people are gonna come over there and be like, oh, it's a really cute dog you have over there. And you're so pretty. And I always tell everybody, like, yes, we want to manage our guests a little bit and make sure that they're not like getting the dog super riled up when they're trying to be successful. But at the end of the day, if somebody comes over and looks at your dog and says, oh my God, they're so cute, or how fluffy, or something like that, it's expected she should stay there, you know?
Yeah. On the walk yesterday, right, we were on high. We were on 100 when we were doing it too. And so this is still very much stimulating, right? She's very, very high stimulated right now with them kind of encouraged or whatever, like taunting her off a little bit. So it's something that we need to match that level of stimulation with our level of the e-collar. So I was just trying to gauge it too. There you go. And then walk her up. Yep. There you go. And again, with the stimulation, right, when it's just you two, you can say that place, she runs right there, right? But now there's like, but I know I need to go there, but you know, he's over here asking for pets and he's over here asking for pets. And so it's like, do I really have to?
I do have a very small living room.
Right, so that's why I like having that slip lead on, yep.
Yeah.
Right, so even if it's something where like, you know, your guests get up too fast or you're watching, you know, a game or whatever. Yes, perfect example. Yes, exactly. So it's something that, yeah, like David was saying, you're definitely going to get these moments of like high stimulation where it is just expected that she's on there, right? You can already start to see she's starting to calm down a little bit more. And what David was saying, very similar to kind of yesterday on the walk, where the reason, again, we're on high is 1 or 2 corrections like we had, right? Gets her kind of, yep, in tune, rather than, like you were saying, the 10, 15 corrections of like these lower levels where you're not really fixing the problem, you're fixing it in that like second, but then a couple seconds later, she's walking right back up in front of you or something, right? Free? Perfect. And then what we'll do is I'll have you kind of just walk her over and put her on a place over here.
smart enough to know. I've seen these guys before.
Well, this is the first time she's seen this guy, so that's why I was like hoping.
She'll remember from over here. She's a pretty smart dog.
Yeah, she's very smart.
Great.
She's doing a nice job.
Yep. Okay, bye, Killian.
I think if she had a dog over here,
And it was
and
kind of the same
answered
thing.
the door over there, that dog would.
She would break it.
I'm pretty sure she would because she would be outside and she would see it in the house.
Oh, okay.
She can see.
Oh,
too.
that's what she's doing right now too. She just walked out.
Yeah, she-
And just see, she tried to call this out. Oh, yeah. Sure. Maybe any of those types of things, you don't want to get caught off guard in moments where it's like you're only practicing it in a real life situation, like role play those things, just like we're doing right now, and the more you can do that.
Go ahead and release her.
Free.
Perfect. And then just reiterating on something with our release as well, it's something that the free is simply just ending criteria. So if it is something that you have her holding that place for 2 hours or something, and you go and you release her and she still stays on there, right? Just call her name, just kind of coax her off a little bit, yeah, because it's something where I won't ever give a correction after like releasing her because she's kind of free to do whatever she wants. Right?
As far as the Zoomies one, like I said, that one, yeah, kind of being a bully, and then, you know, the over arousal in general kind of created that problem, obviously. So just that one in particular, I have this kind of general rule that I don't mind if my dogs like get Zoomies and get hyped up, obviously, but there's a time and a place for it is the way I look at it, right? So I always look at like in the house is not a jungle gym, right? There's no reason why you gotta be leaping and bounding, all tearing through the house, going all crazy and stuff like that. So with my dogs, I would actually correct them in the house if they were to start doing it, right? Before it ever turned into a problem. So the second she started doing it, nope, not doing it here, right? Outside, like I said, you can have as much fun as you want to. You can tear around, time and a place for stuff, but in the house, stop it there and then, right? Especially since she's proven that when she gets into that state of mind, she tends to make bad choices, you know? You want to stop it at the beginning. And that gets to the second thing I was going to say, which is redirecting generally comes from either not doing anything about a certain situation and allowing it to escalate to this point where she feels the need to do it, or in the case of corrections and stuff, it comes from correcting way too late for stuff. Right? If she's already in this like level 100 state of mind, going bananas at something, and I'm trying to correct her for it, in a lot of cases, you'll see the dog start to give you some attitude over that, right? So you want to look at stopping this stuff at the very first sign of it before it escalates to that really intense point, right? So let's take reactivity towards another dog on a walk or a cat or something like that. A lot of times what we'll do is the first week back home, we'll accept like better with the walking because it's better than it was before. So, you know, even though she might not be like perfect from our standards with things, she might not be dragging you around, not going totally crazy at things, stuff like that, and we'll let that slide because it's like, oh, this is manageable, this is fine, I don't have a problem with this. But the problem is we're creating an inconsistent boundary, and then we wait until it gets back to that completely unmanageable point, and then we try to squash it there and then. And then it's like, in her mind, she's like, screw you, I just got away with all this other stuff that I used to be able to get away with. You're not gonna tell me what not to do right now. You know what I mean? So what we look at is, let's say I'm going for a walk. I'm gonna hold her to the standard in which she needs to be held to, which is you gotta stay exactly next to me. Right? Not kind of wandering around, not just not pulling, you need to be actively next to me, right? And when we see that other dog down the street and we're walking, the very first sign I see the slight veer off, well before it ever hits a point where she's going crazy, boom, big correction for that, which will prevent her from ever escalating to that really high point in the first place. Does that make sense? So really look at things that way with those types of things. And then, do you have like, I know you mentioned there's like 4 dogs that bark like all day long. Are those like neighbors' dogs or?
So that's one neighbor, and then we just had 2.
Just like right next to you, the one right next to you?
And
Yeah, yeah.
2 maybe on the other side right next
Yep.
to us, and they like to bark too.
Well, listen, I mean, that's a normal situation people experience. When I used to live on the east side of Cleveland, I used to have like a backyard that was like maybe the size of like, you know, this room. And right there was 2 dogs. Right there was 2 dogs. In the back corner, there were 2 dogs. And then tack onto that, there were deer everywhere in the neighborhood, right? So when I first moved into that house, I remember like walking in the backyard and just being like, damn, like this is a lot of stuff, right? So what did I do? I held my dogs to a higher standard. I intentionally, anytime I looked outside and I saw one of those neighbors' dogs were out, I intentionally went outside to go work on it. I didn't avoid it, right? It's like, this is a real thing. I want to be able to go outside and enjoy myself in the backyard and not have my dog going absolutely bananas at everything that's going on around them, right? So same deal, chase those distractions. That would be a scenario of like, okay, cool. I see the dogs are outside. Let me get my e-collar. I'm just going to turn it all the way up for something like that because I know she's going to get herself into a really, really amped up state of mind. And we're going to let her out. And if she goes running over to that fence line barking, no, boom, correction for it, right? If she still does it, no, boom, correction for that. And I'm just going to set that tone immediately. Like tomorrow, as soon as you get home, like if those dogs are out, we're going in the backyard. We're getting this under control, right? And that's what I mean about the first week. If you could stop all that stuff the first week, then you could just enjoy her the rest of the time. You know, and the other thing too, when it comes to training is very relationship based, right? So let's say like you really buckle down with her over the next couple weeks and you get her really freaking good with you. Regardless of what anybody else does with her, as long as you're present, she'll listen to you still, you know? I always say I don't use anything that anybody else is doing or not doing with my dogs as an excuse for them to not listen to me, right? So, you know, you are the authority figure in the room at that point. And if you're not in the room, yeah, maybe she won't listen to him, but once you're in the room, she should know.